All right. Well, welcome everybody to our Wednesday edition of our English 101 X class. Today we're going to go over the 3 weeks that we have left this semester, and we're also going to be treated to a presentation by NOHEA on writing a narrative essay. The narrative essay is going to be on values, and I uploaded the prompt to Canvas. I'm not sure if I launched it yet, but we'll go over there and we'll take a look. And I just wanted to go over a couple of things here as we're in the final weeks of the semester. And that is that number one, we have 5 classes left here. The very last class is going to be on the 23rd. The persuasive essay is due tonight. And the values essay, the very first draft, is going to be due on the 15th. The last few things that I'm going to ask you to write about are the values essay and a final reflection. And I think that's going to be pretty much it. If we have time to sneak in something on the book, the 4 agreements, we will, but I just want to make sure that I'm cognizant of your workload. I know that you're probably being pulled every which way to every which direction right now, trying to get in all your final assignments for all of your classes. NOHEA is already up to her ears, because the last 3 weeks, it's crunch time and everybody wants a second pair of eyes, and everybody's scrambling, students are scrambling to get in the work so that they can get a good grade. Like I mentioned from the beginning, it's so important to protect your GPA as much as you possibly can. You might as well get A's if you can. B's are cool. But if you're a B student, then you're like 5 or 10 minutes away in each class from being an A student. And so you might as well get A's, because I've seen the students, and when they graduate, they say, oh man, if I would have just given a little bit more, I'd be up there getting accolades too. And it's not out of your reach at all. Your education is very, very important, and you have to dedicate yourself to being professional students as much as you possibly can. And I know we all have things that get in the way of responsibilities, maybe parents or your children or work responsibilities, but your education is something that no one ever can take away from you, and that you can take it everywhere and anywhere. So that's why it is important. I will accept anything to help you get a better grade in this class. And so that even means that if you haven't even had a chance, or you're not happy with your argumentative essay and you still want time to do it, we've got 3 weeks, maybe even a little bit more time. I've got some time at the end of the semester before we're asked to turn in the grades. And I really don't care about, doesn't bother me to turn in the grades at the very, very last minute. If I can help a student get a better grade, then I'm there for you. So we're going to have a wonderful presentation on the narrative. I just wanted to also, implore you to go to the English Center and to make appointments with a tutor, NOHEA, or someone else to have them take a look at your work. It's part of the requirements for each essay, is that you visit the the English Center, and have someone else take a look at your work. It's just very, very important, because they help you to get back on track if you've gotten off track, or if you have questions about format and about anything really. It's just very, very important. And also, in terms of the grades, I went to look at the grades today, and I don't know, the Canvas has gone wild. It has like so many columns that don't need to be there. And I tried to take them out, and I figured out I have to go in and take out each column one at a time. So I think there might be 20 or 25 extra columns in there that don't need to be there. So I'm going to work on getting rid of all the columns so that you can just see exactly the work that you've turned in. And I uploaded some grades today, and I'm going to continue to do that. And if you have any questions about anything, please see me. But the most important writings are the argumentative essay, the persuasive essay, and now the narrative. Why? Because part of the requirements are that we write at least 6,000 words for this class. And, you know, the 3 assignments is 4,500 words. And then between all the discussions and the quizzes and everything else, it takes us way over that. That's why I asked you to write almost constantly, every week, write something. Why? Because the goal was to get you to feel confident in your writing to the point where it becomes second nature. That if someone asks you to write something, which you will be asked to write things in whatever your future is, you'll just say no problem and just get to it and feel comfortable with it. So that's where we're going, and that was one of the goals of this class. All right, well, without further ado, NOHEA, if you're ready, we're just looking forward to your presentation on writing a narrative essay.
Yeah, sounds great. Can I share my screen? Is that okay?
Yes, let me, you are
okay.
The co-host.
And then I didn't see the prompt published yet, or maybe I just missed it in the Canvas shell, but do you happen to know?
Yes, let's take a look at it now.
Okay, I just wanted to see like what the main question is they're tackling with their narrative writing. I had a guess at it since it's about values, and I looked at the model essay. Okay, great, it's right here. Let's see. So for your narrative writing, this is the main assignment that you'll be focusing on to end out your semester. Let's just take a look briefly so I can kind of tailor this short presentation. So what are the 3 things that you value most in life? And then the rest kind of looks like expansion on that, but that would be the main question. So why are these 3 things so important to you? Provide examples and support them with meaningful research. For example, if you say family is very important, research why your family is important to us as individuals. Or if you say music is really important to you, again, and research the power of music in people's lives. Don't forget to provide us readers with plenty of personal examples. Okay, great. So the main question, your professor has a really direct and straightforward, that's great. It's just he's limiting it to 3, and that can provide a really good focus for you. Things that you value most in life, and that is what you're trying to answer in a narrative format and with any type of writing. Argumentative, persuasive, narrative, you're still making claims, and you're still needing to defend those claims. So even though you might know your own values, you still have to provide some sort of evidence. And the fun part about a narrative essay is that you now have the ability to provide us evidence in almost like a story format and really paint some events in your personal life to provide evidence for why you value certain things. I think you can stop the share now. That's great. I'm going to share my presentation now. Let me get this up. And then I'm using PowerPoint software, so hopefully it doesn't act up. I'm gonna be really fancy. I kind of want to try to use the laser pointer. Let's see if this works.
I've tried it, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Oh yeah, that's funny. Let me know if it's just acting up and, you know, being distracting. I can take that off, but I really wanted to try. I haven't used it yet. I'll just be talking about some of the best practices for this new format that we're learning. So we already covered argumentative essays, persuasive essays, and now narrative writing is going to take on its own characteristics. So kind of the main structure of your narrative essay, or if I was brainstorming this on my own and I'm trying to answer the question, you know, what are 3 things that I value? I can't just, you know, say outright, I value, I don't know, like curiosity, intellectual humility, and, you know, like fun. It's not enough to just state our opinions, even of ourselves, because I don't think that's going to convince too many people. If I were writing a narrative essay and I'm trying to prove that to an audience, and tell a story, I'm going to pick, if I have three values, maybe just three key events in my life that I can paint a picture of that show how I learned to value these things. I could talk about curiosity, like being accepted into a philosophy program was really big for me, and maybe paint the scene of how that worked. If I was doing another value, something a little bit more harsh, like I value perseverance, maybe I could talk about growing up a little bit with my mom who had manic bipolar disorder, and just bring you into one scene of that challenge. And that could act as my proof for those values. So that's just one way to build your narrative, is really honing in on some events that could even, some people, when they do narrative writing, they take from their own life or they'll just make it up. But narrative writing, let's see on the next slide, is, I actually had an agenda. So we'll go over what is narrative writing, and then I'm going to give you 7 kind of tips with narrative format that we'll go over. But at its heart, narrative writing has kind of these 3, I've narrowed it down to kind of 3 characteristics that are different from your argumentative and persuasive essay. You have much more license with this format to use descriptive language. So yeah. This is a fun one. I mean, you can use this in your research essays, but sometimes that'll just be too distracting for the purpose at hand, even with persuasive essays. But now you can really hone in on painting a picture for us, painting events that did or did not happen. So this type of language really evokes feelings rather than directly stating facts. And the techniques, I just include like a few examples, metaphors, similes, we've used some of that already. Personification, when you give like human attributes to something that is inanimate. Onomatopoeia, I think that is when you have words that evoke sounds, right, Professor? Is that onomatopoeia? When you have like bang and, okay. Sometimes I get mixed up. And narrative writing, you'll have more license to even have some characters in your essay. So if I'm painting a scene about how I value in perseverance, I want to introduce, almost like an antagonist, someone that I had conflict with to really teach me that value. So maybe I'd talk about my mom a little bit, insert some dialogue. So in narrative writing, you have more license to bring in some characters. A story can have one character, or it can even have a huge cast. In some, the narrator is just the only character, so you could just be narrating a few key points in your life and maybe some other outside research. There's some flexibility with that. And the narrator is the figure from whose point of view the story is being told, and they may or may not interact with other characters. You'll see that quite a bit in different stories. Kind of those different levels of engagement. And then in a narrative piece of writing, you have some sort of series of events usually. If you're doing like a narrative essay though, you could just hone in on 1 or 2 events if you want, and they don't necessarily, have to connect very strongly. The plot, is a series of events that happen in your narrative. A plot can be really simple, so just 1 or 2 events, or it can be complex or multi-layered. So that is the narrating in a very brief nutshell. And then on to some of the tips for any type of narrative writing. Start at a pivotal moment. You only have so much space, especially in like an essay format, to really grab our attention and hone in on like conflict in your life or someone else's life that has taught you a value or taught you, some claim that you want to defend. I have some good examples for these writing tips too that I want to share with you for each tip. So this, starting at a pivotal moment, in the book, The Thousand Autumns of Jacob Izowit, I don't even know how to pronounce that, has a really good opening, I think. So whenever you're talking about an event, sometimes it's best to just start right in the action. So if we read here, I think this is just on the first few pages. Miss Kawasemi, Morito kneels on a stale and sticky futon. Can you hear me? In the rice paddy beyond the garden, a cacophony of frogs detonates. Morito grabs the concubine's sweat-drenched face with a damp cloth. She's barely spoken. The maid holds the lamp for hours and hours. Miss Kawasemi, my name's Hi, Bagala. I'm a midwife. I want to help. Kawasemi's eyes flicker open. She manages a frail sigh, her eyes shut. She is too exhausted, Arito thinks, even to fear dying tonight. So a lot of authors like this technique because not only does it grab the reader's attention, but it gives you a glimpse into what the story is going to lead up to. And they'll kind of do this cool technique where even in movies, you'll see this technique all the time. You start with the middle of the action and then you kind of start back at the beginning of the story leading up to that. So it's a really good technique that a lot of narrative writing uses. I like this one because I do see this a lot in some students writing. I'll do it too. I'm guilty of this next tip. Avoid police report descriptions. So if you are going to introduce another character, maybe someone that's helped bring conflict into your life, taught you a lesson, or helped instill a value for you personally. You know, a lot of us get our values from our parents too. Avoid police report descriptions. So I have some fun examples of that. I like to show students, you know, what to do and also what not to do. Some bad examples actually stay in your mind a bit more, I think. So Joe was a medium-sized man with brown hair and brown eyes. Alan wore a white shirt and blue jeans on his tall frame. So we have an idea what he looks like, right? He has a description. We have a sense of like his frame, his size, his brown hair, brown eyes. It's kind of almost just in a listicle order. So we have a description, but with characters, you know, again, especially in a narrative essay where you only have so much space, you really want to try to focus on the characteristics that stand out that make that character different. So like this example from Toni Morrison, I really like. She's introducing a couple characters in her book. And again, some of these examples are going to be a little bit more involved because they're full-length stories, but they still apply to narrative writing. She has a great description here of her character. She says, I know that woman. She used to live with a flock of birds on Lenox Avenue. Know her husband, too. He fell for an 18-year-old girl with one of those deep down spooky loves that made him so sad and happy he shot her just to keep the feeling going. When the woman, her name is Violet, went to the funeral to see the girl and to cut her dead face, they threw her to the floor and out of the church. She ran, then, through all that snow, and when she got back to her apartment, she took the birds from their cages and set them out to the windows to freeze or fly, including the parrot that said, I love you. So we have some more action even describing the character. We're not just kind of spoon-fed their description, right? So yes. It's a really good technique. Definitely engages our interest. And there's another point I'll briefly go over too about showing and not telling. But see how this description avoids that police report language. It really gives the audience more leeway to make their own decisions about the character. And we get those very standout features of the character that make them them. So whenever in narrative format you want to introduce another character, this is a great strategy to hold attention and to get us to be invested in that character. This one is hard for me too. You know, I'll get tired sometimes and just want to write cliches, but I think it's a great tip to follow for any type of writing, honestly. Avoid cliches. This will come up a bit more in narrative writing when we're trying to be extra descriptive. So let's see. This is a bad example. She gave him a deep, melting kiss before falling into his strong arms, swept away by her feelings. Her mind was a whirlwind of conflicting thoughts and emotions. The square-jawed he-man crushed her in a powerful embrace. Her knees were weak. He was all she'd ever dreamed of. So we have a lot of those kind of like cookie cutter languages, phrases that we use quite often, and it's really not a sin to use some of these language patterns. It's just been so overused that's why it's a cliche. We all know what it means. When you have narrative writing and an assignment that lets you practice this type of writing, you really want to try to do your best to challenge yourself and be creative and find other ways of describing events, describing people. a whirlwind of conflicting thoughts. There are so many other ways that you could describe that sense of like overwhelming. So let me show you a good example. Oh, I thought I had none. Never mind. So just that's a pretty easy tip to follow. You can write those kind of cookie cutter responses at first. Hello, but try to brainstorm, come back later, and think: is there any other way I could describe this statement here? It's fine to just be drafting. Drafting always includes improvement and just getting the ideas on paper. But final drafts, I try to avoid that. So it brings me to the next short point. Avoid hysterical punctuation. I do see this a lot. I'll get excited when I'm writing and I'll over punctuate. And sometimes it can really throw off the tone of the narrative writing. So just a real short example. She saw him across the room. Jack, it's me. I'm so glad to see you. So it can just be very unnecessary. Sometimes it comes off as like too harsh of a tone or too try hard. Like you really want the characters and the actions to speak for themselves. So you don't need all of this extra punctuation. I'll definitely see abuse of the exclamation point. I'm surprised they even wrote in all caps here. So be wary of that, because that can really change the tone for us when we're reading through your narrations of different events and people. So this is a really, really great strategy. I go over this all the time with my students who come in. Show me, don't tell me. So in any type of writing, especially narrative writing, you want to not rely on just blanket statements. Again, you want the audience to do the work and to make their own kind of inferences based off the scene you're describing. So here's a bad example first, and this one I do have a good example after. The bad example is: Mike hit him with a metal bar and the man fell dead. Mike left hurriedly, realizing he was going to go to jail. Getting in his car, he drove away fast, heading for a hotel. At the hotel, he sat and decided what to do. So we already have a good picture in our head what's happening in this scene. And again, it's okay when you're drafting to start off with this and you're just trying to get the scene down. But there are so many better ways of letting the audience come to these conclusions that really engage their interest and make them more invested. So let's look at the good example. And I have the bad one up here just to kind of compare it to. But her eyes searched quickly, flitting around the room. It had to be here somewhere. Her hands were starting to shake, the familiar signal from her bloodstream that time was running out. Beads of sweat rolled down her forehead as she overturned dirty pillows and tore open empty cupboards. She reached for her purse, but she knew already what she would find inside. Nothing. She screamed a desperate scream. So in this great showing example, instead of telling example, we're describing more of just like the actions that are taking place. We do have a sense of how the character feels. We are sometimes being told, how she feels. I thought it was somewhere. Well, we're not really told outright, actually. This is a very good example. We have a lot of context clues. She's screaming. We do have a qualifier word here, this desperate. So that's kind of telling, but we have so much more action here to help us make our own conclusions and inferences that we get to do more of the work and we get to be more involved in the story. We're asking ourselves, okay, why is she behaving this way? Seems like she's frantically looking for something. What could it be? Are these drugs? Is this, someone who needs like blood sugar? They have blood sugar problems. Who knows? She's in somewhat of a hurry, tearing apart this room. And we can see the symptoms because they're being described to us. Sweat is on her forehead. There's these dirty pillows that she's just tearing apart. So that is a great example of showing us, instead of just telling us the action again and how these characters feel and step by step what they are doing. You really don't need to include a lot of context clues sometimes for us to understand, which is a really cool part of writing. A lot of people think that you need to say all the letters from A to Z for people to understand, but you can skip around a bit and our brain fills in the rest. This is another one that I see quite often in narrative writing. Don't assume the reader knows what you mean. Um, and that's already kind of hard to understand, but this is what I mean by that. So if we have this is a bad example. Joe felt so different now. It was a completely overwhelming feeling that he couldn't pin down. He sat down on the cliff edge and scanned the vista below. It was perfect. Everything was perfect. The mountains below were like nothing he'd ever seen before, and the air was just the right temperature. So I've seen this in a lot of different books, honestly, that still got published. So it's not a total sin and people get it by all the time. But you see how with this type of language, we have just kind of, it's almost lazy, you know, overwhelming feeling. What does that mean? We have perfect quite a bit. It was perfect. Everything was perfect. That can mean a lot of different things for people. That doesn't give us a clear image in our mind when we're reading this, right? Our job in a narrative sense is to, like an artist, instead of painting with oil or acrylics, we're really trying to paint the picture with words here, and we're not getting a good picture here. The mountains below are like nothing you'd ever seen before. That's like even a cliche. What does that mean? Just the right temperature? You really want to describe some of these and qualify some of this for us. And don't assume the reader knows what you mean by any of this. And I think we're already winding down to some of the last points. This might be the last one. Don't include every single word of dialogue. Dialogue is one of the hardest, I think, techniques to include too, if you are going to include it in narration. So say you do introduce a character and you're not just the main point of view narrating everything and not interacting with other characters. Dialogue can be kind of tricky. There's a lot of fun formatting rules that I had to learn about too. But let me show you again, this is probably best illustrated with a bad example first. Oh, yeah, I do have a good example for this one too. I'm sorry, I'm gonna read through all of this. We're all gonna suffer through it together. So, hi, Harriet, said Jane, sitting down at the restaurant table. Sorry I'm late. Hi, Jane, nice to see you, said Harriet. Have you been waiting long? Jane said anxiously. No, don't worry, only 5 minutes. Oh, that's not bad. Jane smiled, relieved. No, I was late too. The buses were a nightmare. Yes, the trains were no good either. The two laughed. Then Jane picked up her menu. Have you decided? The shrimp boulevard looks good. Jane frowned in concentration. Or the lasagna. I wonder if that is vegetarian. I guess I can ask. Jane, I'm beginning to worry that the compounds present in the creature's brains may cause their strange behavior. Using them as a protein source could have deadly consequences. Just then the waitress appeared to take their order. Hi, would you like to hear the specials? She said happily. That is all one scene, right? And that is quite a mouthful. I didn't even track all of that when I was reading that out loud. Just, you could cut that down to this. Arriving at the restaurant 5 minutes late, Jane made her excuses as she took her seat at the table. Harriet was looking worried. About the result of the autopsy, she began. So we can still have the same picture in our mind, right? With much less fluff and chances of getting distracted. So dialogue, even just like character traits, is really about putting in what is meaningful, what helps our brain fill in those gaps to get that scene down. So don't worry about your narrative essay having to be, a complete narrative. That you're not writing a book here, you're not writing a biography, the beginning, middle, end. You can just show us some very illustrative scenes to help prove these values to us, instead of just saying, I love intellectual humility and curiosity, and I also really like perseverance, right? It's going to be much more powerful and persuasive if I give you some snapshots of my life and tell you about, even some of I can use outside sources too. Your professor is giving you the leeway to do that. So I can even bring in some other voices to help me prove those points. So these are good techniques to keep in mind. They're on the agenda too, on I think one of the first or the second slide or something. And I'll send these slides to you too. But a lot of the tips are just kind of red flags to what to look out for. Again, when you're drafting, don't worry too much about getting it down perfect, but try to read through your final drafts and before you turn them in and see if you are doing any of those kinds of red flags. And it's very good practice right now. I think narrative writing, even though it is a bit more of a creative medium, it can still be a very, very powerful technique, and even in your professional life. Storytelling, I could go off about that. So I don't even know what time I'm at right now, but I really like the art of storytelling because it's such a core human feature. And we actually did some research too on children's brains in development, and as young as, like, I think they even say just like 2 months old, if you're telling them stories with the logical beginning, middle, end, they're much more primed for learning like higher level logic later on. It's really neat. So narration is a very good technique to practice right now. And let me stop the shares for now and get that sent back to you. Oh, I didn't do too bad. It's like 10:40. Okay, let me see, because I really like that format. I'll definitely talk about it in a while. Oops. So let me get this sent. I thought we had someone else in here too that popped in, but then maybe they popped out.
Yeah, Elena popped in and out.
Okay. I'll try to send this through here through Zoom, but also send it to your students maybe through Canvas inbox too. I haven't been the best at that. But...
Okay.
Oh, wait. I made a PDF of the slides. Okay, there it is. That should go through in just another minute. But yeah, any questions about that? I know I went through the tips kind of quickly, so those are just some things to do, mostly what not to do. And mistakes I see come up all the time with students writing. I still do a lot of those. Any questions? No? I thought Alicia might be here today too. I've been seeing Alicia and Joy at the English Center quite a bit, so that's been good.
Yeah, I thought she would be here too. She's usually comes and joins us and has really nice things to say.
But I think you do a good job at recording all these too. I'll totally forget about the recording, and your students will see. And just a reminder, come into the English Center. All of the tutors are pretty well versed in these techniques, and we can help you practice any of them. Don't try to do all of the literary techniques just for this one essay. Maybe just choose a few. Genesis said, would this be in any specific first, second, or third person?
Definitely first person. You're going to be writing from your perspective. And I mean, the way that I see it, and if you take a look at, we can actually go to the module in a second, but there's two examples of previous students writing about values. And, the prompt really says, pick 3 of the things that mean the most to you. A lot of students write about family or love, or me, it was music as like the most important value I have in my life. And then you dedicate each body paragraph to one value, right? You start off with a topic sentence and you write about that one value, then you go into the narrative, where, like NOHEA said, either, using a personal example and then be very descriptive about the person and about the example. And I actually uploaded something on writing with a flair, so to speak, in the on the module. So, but I liked everything that she shared. You have a lot of creative license here. You want to, as like I always say, you might as well have fun with it and not be, no stress allowed, right, NOHEA?
Yeah, exactly. This is like one of the most fun formats, so definitely take advantage of that. And I promise, even if you're taking it very seriously, I think you'll be rewarded later, because being able to tell a good story is, I think, invaluable for a lot of things.
Mm-hmm. And I love the fact, avoid cliches, challenge yourself to be as creative as possible, and paint pictures with your words. I love that. And so, just share what your values are. I mean, we're on a journey here. We started with the argumentative essay, and we started with trying to sweep things out of your way so that you become successful at wherever you're going, right? Let's get rid of our addiction to screens and to phones. Let's overcome fear. Let's become growth mindset as opposed to fixed mindset, right? Let's get rid of procrastination. All of these things we've already covered and written about and talked about. And now we talked about music and its influence in our life, and it's all around us, and to how powerful it is as a medium, to us and to the world. And then now we're coming full circle as to what do we truly value and write about our values. And from here, we just want to really take off with our career and our path to our career. And we've gotten to the point where we can write a lot without thinking twice about it. And this one here is the same thing. We want you to write a narrative about your values and be as descriptive as possible and learn a little bit more about writing in the narrative venue. So, any questions, Joy or Genesis? Okay.
I'm good. The only thing that I have like a question about, today at noon, I'm going to be putting in my queue. I don't know if you know, NOHEA, because you've been a student here for a while. This is a pre-executive class for a class that I need. One more class that's offered in summer, and it's in my queue right now, but today I could actually put it in my cart. The only thing is that English, does it have to be, the class doesn't start until after this is over, but do I have to wait until the following semester to have it, or can I do it now, even though it's not graded? As long as it's graded in before this semester is over, I can start that class. That's my question.
It's been a while since I've been a student. I actually only took one class at City. I went to Point Loma Nazarene University. I'm actually repping it today. And then San Jose State. But yeah, so it's been so long with City registration. We do have specific like peer mentors or people who help students with the registration. We've had a few students come into the English Center asking about that. So let me find that resource, Joy, and then you use Canvas inbox, right? Or you want me to?
Yeah, and I don't sign up for the class on Canvas. I have to go into what else is it called? It's called something else. Let me see here.
Yeah, I did listen to one of the front desk girls answer or like
it's
point.
San Diego Mesa Community College.
Okay. Yeah,
I have to go under instead of Canvas.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe it starts, they told me, email me, it says it starts at 12:30 this afternoon for me to actually get the class. But I have a feeling that maybe the teacher will have me in the waiting area until my grades are in. I don't know how it works. I was just hoping that I can get it done for summer, and so I can get my certificate of performance in the summer instead of December.
Yeah, no, I wish I could help
to get
more
a job
with
at Mesa or something. I'm trying to get a job with the community colleges entry level as I continue with my associates. So yeah, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I'll find you. There's some sort of like city peer mentor or something that specifically helps with like students registration. So I'll try to find that. I just got to find the right link. And we've been referring students to that resource whenever they come, because there have been more than one that's asking for registration help. So I'll try to do that for you and send it to you.
All right. So this narrative, when we're done with it, we don't have to put it in MLA format, correct?
No.
Okay, it'll just be fun. Okay. Yeah. First person. All right. And we just choose one that we pick, right? We don't choose like a few. We just stick to one value?
No, I'll take you there now. And here's the prompt.
Okay.
And Boy, that thing's gonna go round and round and drive me crazy.
I know Canvas having a hard time today, I guess.
Hey, all right. Okay, so it's fairly simple. What are the three things that you value most in life? And so you'll be writing about three different values. Why are these three things so important to you? Provide examples and support them with meaningful research. That's why we went through that exercise of picking from, starting with 100, going down to 10 to 5 to 3 to 1. But anyway, so this here is the prompt, and I've kept it fairly simple. What are the three things that you value most in your life? Okay, and the first draft isn't due till a week from this Sunday, and then the final draft is due May 22nd.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds
So,
good.
okay, so let me go back to.
And it looks like Genesis had a question in the chat too about the recordings. She said, are we still summarizing the recorded classes we didn't attend? She just hasn't seen any recorded classes posted.
No, I haven't been putting them up. But this one I will ask the students to comment on. But since she comes to class, she doesn't have to do that. Anyone who comes to the class doesn't have to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see here. All right, so I'm going to go back to the module. And here it says read. Obviously, here's the prompt that we just showed you. Here are two examples of previous students. These are good models of the narrative that students wrote about their values. We're also into reading the second agreement. Don't take anything personally. From the book, The Four Agreements. And here you upload your first draft, which it says here, May 15th is the deadline. And here is a video of Oprah Winfrey again with Don Miguel Ruiz going over the second agreement. Don't take things personally. I will upload a discussion board so that students can comment. And like I mentioned earlier, and which was great because NOHEA hit on a couple of these points, is that use your imagination and descriptive imagery to enhance your narrative essay. Take a look at this video to embellish your writing with expressive phrases. And so it's a really cool short video on it's, even though it says how to write fiction that comes alive, it's really has a lot of really good ideas, and hopefully to motivate you to be descriptive and like NOHEA says, paint pictures with your words. And that's it. That's it for this module here. Like I said, we're winding down. I'm not asking the students to turn in a ton of stuff because we did all of the tough stuff in the beginning, and now we're kind of like getting down to I think what is easily the easiest essay to write. Okay, but again, very important that you try to hook up with a tutor or an NOHEA before the end of the semester. And if you have any questions about anything, please let me know right away. And I'm going to go through. Go through it and take out all those columns that aren't necessary in the grading columns.
Yeah, for Canvas. I was going to give another shout out just real quick to the workshops that we're doing too. We have a couple this weekend that you might be interested in. I don't know. May 7th, I think that's Saturday, 10 to 11. We have using direct quotes and paraphrases in academic writing. And we actually have a couple professors giving these workshops too. So definitely consider it. And then we have another workshop right after that, 11:30 to 12:30, editing some common English language acquisition, writing errors. I still feel like that some of that applies to me. I'm from Hawaii and it feels like I learned a different language sometimes. So check those out. And yeah, please come in for your narrative drafts if you want my help or any of the English tutors' help.
Okay, excellent. All right, thank you for coming and sharing with us today. Thank you, NOHEA, for that wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
Continue to work on your writings and send us drafts or anything at all. Contact the English Center, and good luck with everything that you're doing with your writings.
Thank you. And bye.